We never know nowadays when or where there'll be trouble next. The only certainty is that someone will try to cause serious trouble again, somewhere, sometime. Shipping is a big international target, whether from terrorists, pirates, or criminal gangs. That's why ports pay considerably more attention to security than they used to. And why every ship has a security officer, whose job it is to deal with whatever needs to be done, or so it might seem. But in fact, that's not the way security works. Certainly, the ship security officer will draw up the plans for the ship security with input and help from the company security officer and keep them up to date.
Sir, if you just come this way, please, and sign yourself in the book.
They will establish procedures, ensure security equipment is up to scratch,
coming into an open berth,
run training and drills, give briefings whenever necessary,
security from black,
and be in charge of all the physical security measures that the ship makes use of. Even so, there's not a chance ship security officers could do everything on their own. That means some other people will get additional training to be able to do specific security jobs. And everyone else on board contributes. First, by realizing that security takes in the whole ship and every member of the crew. And then by acting accordingly. For example, you might think that anyone walking past the ship has a right to be there. In many ports, you might well be correct. Although a security breach can happen at any port, at any time. In any case, a terrorist or a criminal could get themselves a pass that allows them into the port area. It's still up to us to see they don't get any further. So, at the heart of security for a ship is control of access. That starts by being aware of what's going on outboard of the ship, on both sides. There are also the less conventional forms of access to be considered. We're dealing with people who'll take whatever route is open to them. Then there are the main access points, where we have formal systems of monitoring, identity checking, and logging visitors. It's also good practice to make our control of access clearly visible. Obvious security awareness on the part of the ship acts as a useful deterrent. We then have a second layer of access control on board. Parts of the ship are designated restricted areas. These are areas that are essential to the movement and control of the ship, such as the bridge, engine room, and steering gear. Others are known as controlled areas. There are several ways to make both of these secure. Even if the ship has electronic surveillance, that doesn't mean we can be any less vigilant. Just because we've locked up and have surveillance cameras, it doesn't mean that someone on board and wearing a pass can roam the ship unchallenged. We're all aware of the risks of being asked to take things onto a ship. But there are other ways for unwanted items to get on board, in amongst ship's stores, for instance. So they're always checked to ensure that they are expected and haven't been tampered with. Any suspicious or superfluous items should be separated and kept as far away from the ship as possible. If there's any reason for doubt, we check the vehicle and the driver as well. In the same fashion, we examine any cargo that might not be what it appears, and load nothing that's not meant to be transported. Different ships have detailed procedures laid down in their own ship security plan. But in all cases, they're based on 3 levels. Security level 1 is what we have most of the time, and so is known as normal, which shouldn't be interpreted as meaning relaxed. It means the baseline security measures that are carried out every day.
Excuse me, sir, may I help you?
We still check every person wanting access to the ship.
Yes.
We still examine all unaccompanied baggage. We still challenge anyone we find in the ship.
Sir, can I help you? Can you identification, please? Yep. Yeah, that's fine. And can I see what you're doing?
And we still point out to the harbour authorities when something in their control makes the ship vulnerable. We're permanently out to prevent any kind of attack and the slightest risk of lives being lost. Unfortunately, that's what normal means these days. We don't want stowaways either, who in the worst case could have plans for action once the ship's at sea. Security level 2 is called heightened, which means putting additional measures into effect. So we reduce the number of access points. We also increase the frequency of searches of those coming on board. We have more patrols moving around the ship. This is especially important at night. And at security level 2, all visitors are escorted. Security level 3, called exceptional, means that a threat is thought to be imminent. So that means special procedures are put in place and security tightens still further. Access may be restricted to ship's crew. It is possible that only essential visitors necessary for the operation of the ship will be allowed on board, such as control authorities, pilots and maintenance technicians, and only after rigorous checking of their identity documents and personal items and bags. We may stop loading cargo and ship stores. We use the maximum available lighting and operate all the surveillance equipment we have, since threats can come from any direction. We may even have to take measures such as making a search of the entire ship. Should our ship be instructed to go to security level 3, VIRSEC will give specific instructions on what security procedures must be followed. or moving the ship away from direct contact with the land. All these general procedures are supplemented by extra ones that apply to cruise ships. We sometimes have several access points in use at once, all needing security control. And there are a lot of people wanting access, on and off ship. What's more, that can be true even when we're not alongside. Often, we can rely on the port's screening procedures. But sometimes, there'll be a need for us to conduct searches as well. And usually the port will establish a secure area around the berth. But we still need our own access checking system. And particularly with the numbers we have on embarkation, we need to keep checked and unchecked people separate from one another. With those numbers on board, we also need to take extra care with items that in the wrong hands could become weapons. Just because we need them to do our work doesn't mean that they can be easily obtained due to carelessness for someone to pick up and then use against us. It's everybody's business to know what security level your ships are operating at, and the security measures that should be in place. Control access to the ship at all times.
Sorry, sir, at this present time there's nobody allowed aboard.
Close and lock, if necessary, all doors, and certainly don't allow anyone to follow you through a closing door. Ensure all visitors are issued with and then clearly display a pass, and challenge any visitors who are not displaying a pass. Be aware of what is happening outboard of the ship in all directions. And finally, report anything suspicious, no matter how trivial it seems, to your supervisor or watchkeeper. None of these actions and procedures under the heading of security is optional. Not just because they're in the ship security plan, but because that plan itself is a requirement of the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code, the ISPS code, to which the UK is a signatory. But in fact, most of it's only common sense when you think about it. And besides, security affects us all personally. It's our home, our livelihood, and potentially it is our lives that could be under threat. That's why we should have absolutely no hesitation in reporting anyone or anything we think is suspicious.
Bridge. Yeah, I've located a suspicious package.
Whether what we see is outboard of the ship or something we notice on board. When it comes to security, we're the first line of defense, each and every one of us. When on a ship, security is everybody's business.